Parents, what's the most messed up thing you've caught your kid doing? My wife was driving our then 3-year-old back from her aunt's house to eat lunch. She noticed him cram something in his mouth and start chewing, and she asked him what he was eating. No response. Thinking he might be choking or something, she brakes hard, pulls over to the side of the road, yanks the back door open and grabs a French fry out of his mouth. Now, they'd been to McDonald's several days before, and the car had been cleaned since then. So she looks high and low to see where it came from. She gets suspicious and takes the cover off his car seat. Lo and behold, there's about a dozen stale French fries in the folds of the plastic car seat. Far too many to be accounted for by random drops. The kid was stashing them for later, like a squirrel. This is tame by comparison to some of the other stories here, but here it is. When my son was about a year old, I found him stuffing his pants pockets full of Vaseline, scooping it out with his hands. Really makes me wonder why little kids' clothes even have pockets. I was dressing my 4-month-old son the other day. His trousers had pockets on them. Like, what the heck does a 4-month-old need pockets for? My 4-year-old daughter used to stash steak knives in strategic locations around the house. My neighbor busted her doing it. I didn't believe him until he pulled out a 6-inch carving knife from behind a bookcase. With the right mentor, your daughter will grow up to be an amazing badass. My friend who worked in a residential treatment facility once found a kid who'd stuck a paperclip into an electrical outlet and was lying on the floor looking at it. When asked what he was doing, the kid replied, "Every time I touch this with my tongue, I wet my pants." I read that in Ralph Wiggum's voice from The Simpsons. My daughter cramped in a box and gave it to my son as a present in front of our whole family. I guess no one really caught her as she was obviously and openly trolling. Pretty messed up. I didn't even know what to say to that. I caught my son, 7, and his best friend, 9, drawing clown faces on each other's butt cheeks and with the plans of tooting in each other's faces. I mean, yeah, it's gross, but it's also objectively hilarious and weirdly cute, not that I can put my finger on why. One of the less messed up things in this grouping by far. A few weeks ago, my 4-year-old said she had to pee. She was in the bathroom for maybe 5 minutes when we start hearing her gag, so I tell her dad to go and check on her. He walks in and she quickly throws a huge log back in the toilet and tries to hide her doo-doo covered hands. When he asked her why she was playing with her caca, she said she wanted to see how squishy it was. Ugh. I did this once when I was a kid. It stuck to my hands, obviously. I was not pleased and never did it again. Friend's daughter once said pretty loudly in a bus, "Look, Daddy, Uncle's beard looks like Mom's pee-pee." I lived in a condo when I was a kid. The family living above us had a girl my age, who I played with in a small forest bordering our backyard from time to time. She used to pick up these big black slugs from the ground and lick the thick black slime off of them, like completely savoring every drop. She thought it was yummy and would easily do a dozen slugs in one sitting. Her parents discovered it, and needless to say, we were not allowed to play in the forest anymore. Walking in on my son flirting on Omegle. He was 7 at that time. The youngest one, age 5 at the time, stuck multiple quarters in the skin of his pee-pee and showed my best friend his change dispenser impersonation. It was hilarious and deeply weird. My son went through a phase where he would wake up from his nap, unbeknownst to us, take off his diaper and smear his doo-doo all over his room. It'd be on his bed, the walls, the windows, his toys. Worst of all, there would be places where it looked like he'd rubbed it into the carpet with all his might. I wish I could say this only happened once. We also caught him tasting and eating his own boom boom more than once. My son did that for a year. Every day after his nap, I would take a deep breath, say a prayer that maybe this day my nightmare would be over, and walk into his room to see him covered in brown, with smears all over his crib, the walls, and himself. I tried putting footy PJs on him and safety pinning the zipper up, safety pinning the pants and a shirt together on him, cutting the feet off those PJs and putting them on backwards. I seriously thought about duct taping that damn diaper on him. Eventually he grew out of it, but I nearly lost my mind. I'm just so glad that I'm not alone. Anyone I talk to seems to think that no toddlers ever do this. I have twins, and one is the great Poopy Picasso, and the other one is unfortunately getting crap thrown at him like it's a monkey war zone. A few days ago I came in because I heard them playing instead of napping. Scat everywhere. I got them in the shower, got all the sheets and pillows in the wash, scrubbed everything, added new sheets, got the kids back in the crib. Picasso has taken off his diaper and done it again. He has no sheets right now, just why? I was babysitting my friend's children, probably aged around 5 and 7 back then, and I caught the daughter, the 5-year-old, following her brother into the bathroom when he wanted to pee. The kids then informed me that she does it all the time because she likes to run her fingers in the stream of pee and then lick them because it's yummy. My daughter is not even 3, but she put a box of nerds down her diaper and stated that she was a rattle toy. Uncle to a rambunctious boy. When he was around 2, we found him laying around with a dog, English bulldog. Neither seemed like anything was wrong except for the dog jingling. My nephew had stuck my brother's car keys up the dog's butt, like all the way to the plastic knob. The dog seemed unfazed, and my nephew seemed proud that he had found the keyhole to start the dog. My friend used all the olive oil to tickle his pickle with. His parents never caught him, but his mum figured it out and told him to use lotion because it was cheaper. Something extra virgin. I have an 8-year-old son who has sleepovers with the kid down the block. I came downstairs and one had his head under the other's blanket. After the typical, "What the frick are you guys doing?" I found out they have a game where they smell one another's toots. I thought it was weird, then I remembered the same scene from Biodome. Not my kids, but babysitting my twin cousins recently. They're 5. They were arguing about something during a snack, and the boy twin suddenly got eerily calm. He goes into her bedroom, gets the terrarium for her anoles, the lizards you find in your gardens, and takes it outside. She starts screaming bloody murder. I'm completely confused. He turns to her through the glass door and proceeds to smash the tank against the ground. Just windmills his arms and wails the tiny box against the cement. No fluctuation in his emotion. I ran out to stop him, but the 5 or so little lizards in the tank were dead. I looked back at the other twin and she was sobbing into her hands. He just walked past her and sits down to continue eating his snack. My aunt told me that was the 3rd time he's done that. Your aunt should frickin' do something about his behavior. This kind of emotional stuff is going to destroy the other twin. Agreed. And 1, he's harming animals, and 2, this isn't ripping up a drawing, this is a seriously violent act. Me and my 5-year-old son at the urinals. He's arguing that his pee-pee is bigger. It was at a hockey arena, so there were about 40 dudes laughing their butts off. Were they laughing because his was bigger? You were there, weren't you? My daughter, when 15 and heavily in piercings and death metal, decided to brand herself with a star shape on her arm. I didn't realize till the next day, still no idea how she managed the shape or not to scream. She still has the scars. Cripes, I did some pretty stupid stuff to try and change up my look when I was a kid, but never quite got around to branding myself with a presumably homemade, star-shaped red poker. I'm sweating just thinking about it. My youngest of 3 had just started walking. One day I found her hanging onto the bathroom toilet. I walked in and to my surprise, saw her with a handful of soggy toilet paper. Right as I scream her name, that little baby's hand reaches up into her mouth and she begins chewing it. One of my older kids forgot to flush and I panicked, having never experienced this with her bro or sis. I called poison control. They assured me that children ingest fecal matter often and she may have a stomachache but will be fine. Another time, same kid mind you, we're walking into a grocery store. I look down and say, her name, "Where did you get that gum you're chewing?" Her reply was, "On the ground." Ugh, she's by far my most disgusting child. My kids were pretty tame. I had one son scotch tape himself to the floor. I think he liked the sound of the tape coming off. Same son also built scotch tape footbridges between the countertops. My daughter snuck out one night and a friend who works nights saw her and called us. We were waiting on her bed when she climbed back in the window. God, that was a great parenting moment. My dad caught my sister sneaking back into the house with a ladder. "Why don't you just take the stairs?" was the only question he asked her. Those are the worst, when you know you're in deep crap but the parents don't sound mad. The uncertainty of your fate drives you crazy. Not a parent, but I've caught my younger brother, aged 3 to 5 at the time, on a stepping stool peeing into the air conditioning unit. I didn't so much catch him at it, it was more like he was doing it at me. He's 4 years old and we were having a bedtime battle where he simply wouldn't be quiet or stay in bed. He can really dig in his heels sometimes. I was getting really angry for the 4th or 5th time that night and I walked up to his doorway to tell him he needed to be quiet. He was ready for me with his pants off, his ankles up to his ears, and his butthole pointed directly at the doorway. He heard me when I stopped dead in my tracks and he looked between his legs at me with pure hate in his eyes. I gently told him to pipe down and went back to my room. I come back one more time for the same reason, and this time he was in the same position except he was sticking his finger in his butt. At me. Hatefully. He just sat there wordlessly mean-mugging me with his finger in his butt. That was probably the most messed up crap I've caught my kid doing. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. I used to have a roommate that would help me with watching my daughter, even during times where I just needed a nap. One day I was napping and my roommate was watching my daughter, but my daughter headed back to her room. She didn't come out for a while, so my roommate went looking for her. She found my daughter in my room, standing over me with a toy knife, bringing it down over and over, whispering, "Stab, stab, stab, stab." My son was 5 and had started playing Skyrim on the Xbox 360. One afternoon, the neighbor called and asked if I could watch her son, also 5, for a few hours. They played with swords, shields, Nerf guns, typical boy games. At one point I stopped hearing them. That's always a dangerous thing with any child. You know something is going down. I opened the door very quietly and saw them on the floor. My son was now wearing his friend's shirt and pants, and the other boy was down to only his underwear. My first thought was, what the frick? But my son looked up at me with a sword in his hand and said, "We're playing Skyrim, and I just killed him, so I'm taking his stuff." All I could say was, "Okay, but let's try and keep all of our clothes on from now on." Well, from about the age of 2 to 5, I had a flock of imaginary ducks that used to follow me around. Apparently, we had to wait a good minute or so each day when getting into the car so all of my duck friends could come along. When asked about them, I would say that I am their king and they are here to follow me. But apparently it started getting weird when I'd pretend to break up fights between the ducks and cry when one died. Yep, I was a bit messed up. My brother hated bugs. We had cacti in our front yard. He would cut their heads off and skewer them all over the cacti, or he would take their heads and put their wings in their body where their heads would be. Vlad the Exterminator. Sent the boys to bed with popcorn for a fun treat. I heard maniacal laughter shortly thereafter. Go upstairs to find one of them sticking popcorn betwixt his cheeks and farting so it came out. Asked what was going on, and both boys in a panic tried to eat the evidence as mother and I watched horrified. Walked into the bathroom to find my son trying to put a piece of duty back up his butt because he thought his heart fell out. Not my kid, but my friend went back to pick up his little brother from his friend's house and no parents were home, so he walked up and found his brother and his friend holding each other's wee-wees. My friend is a 3rd grade teacher. He came to school one morning after having been out sick for a day and found that his classroom only had girls. Turns out all the boys had been suspended the day before for teabagging each other during recess. Walked in on my kid torturing an action figure with a lighter. "Where are your rebel friends now? Ha 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 ha." That's not that uncommon, I guess. My friends and I did weird crap like that when we were kids. Like one time, we made a parachute for an action figure out of a shopping bag and some string, and then we taped a firecracker to his butt, lit it, and threw him on the floor of a 4-story building. Just because. Kids are strange. Reading this, I'm thinking kids are dangerous psychopaths who shouldn't be allowed alone with pets. Apparently, when I was little, I ran off in the buff towards the local golf course. I was also caught making my butthole breathe in front of the mirror. Oh, and I picked up my little sister by the head. I mean, the streaking at the golf course is just hilarious and kind of normal for kids, I think. The other two, a little weird but still not out of the ordinary. I have to assume the sister was okay for the author to post this. This is less messed up than just funny, but my cousin entered the bathroom to find her 2-year-old boy had covered himself in mummy's stickers. They weren't stickers, they were Kotex pads. And yes, there are photos. I finally remember a birthday party at my then-girlfriend's family when her 5-year-old cousin came down the stairs from the bathroom, happy as a clam and announcing to the world, "Mommy, I stuffed cotton balls into my butt just as you always do." Mommy was not happy with her son. I'm getting a vasectomy. I caught my daughter putting Tic Tacs in her butt because she wanted her next number 2 to smell good. My mum caught my little brother descaling their brand new goldfish at the kitchen table. It was disturbing from what I hear. Son here. You know those furious whack-offs you sometimes do purely to get your fun stick to settle down? Well, yeah, I'd been cooking cookies, listening to music. Nobody was home, so I thought, 1 minute till the cookies are done. I can do this. And I basically lay on the floor and furiously spanked the mule with all my might. Finished. Opened my eyes and behold my mum, arms full of shopping, in the doorway. We didn't speak for a while and I avoided eyesight. When I discovered you could download adult flicks on Kazaa, I skipped school. Turns out my sister skipped her last class and came home early. She walked in on me. Months later, I stupidly entered her room without knocking and I caught her in the act. She yelled out, "Now we're even!" I guess she was right, but I still feel that was a weird thing to say. I've been told on numerous occasions about how when I was 3 or 4, as my parents and I were walking out of the old spaghetti factory, I turned to a table that had a black family in it, with a little black boy about my age, and I excitedly exclaimed, "Look, it's a basketball baby!" My parents told this story of when I was about 3 or 4. My sister was playing in her room one day and apparently came across a spider in her toy chest. Being a 5 to 6-year-old, she lost her mind and started screaming. That's when I supposedly learned what my life's calling was. As the story goes, I come barging into my sister's room and yell, "Don't worry, I'll hypnotize it with my wee-wee," and promptly dropped my pants. My dad laughed, my mother cried, and I defeated the spider. Not a parent, but my friend's little brother, who was 5 or 6 at the time, would strip down and chase me through the house with a kitchen knife. I was terrified of hanging out with my friend because of this. So after it happened 2 or 3 times, and one time his older brothers attacked me while wearing the Scream costume, I decided I wasn't going to his house anymore. My 3-year-old son asked this random woman in a store if she was scared in the fire. He said, "I saw you burning, but I couldn't help you." The woman turned as white as a sheet and explained to me that she had been in a terrible house fire when she was little, 50 years ago. It burned her hands and legs very badly. I was very creeped out at the time. I'm still not sure what the frick happened there. I don't know if it's messed up, but it messed me up a bit. Not a parent, but an older brother. When my younger sister's twins were about 2 or 3 years old, they filled the bathtub up with hot water, using only the red side of the 2 knobs, and took off their diapers and threw them in the tub. I heard from my mum that they inflated to huge dimensions. Oh, and the time one of them put an entire roll of toilet paper in the toilet, effectively clogging it. My sisters do weird crap together. My 3-year-old son figured out how to take selfies with an old iPad we had. Wife thought I'd be teed off. The pictures were hysterical, but not safe to show others. I wiped that iPad pretty fast, as it would be tough to explain the pics to people. Funny because he was all calm in the pictures. Batman undies, just one leg in, halfway up his leg as he posed for the camera. It was as though he knew exactly how he wanted to look in them. Not bad by any stretch, but my almost 2-year-old daughter has a sheep comfort toy that she loves. Can't go to sleep without him. Whenever she's upset, she just calls for him. Came home to the sheep's disemboweled husk. Apparently he had a small tear, and she went to town on him. I hate to think what she'd do to someone she hates after seeing what she did to her best friend. Happy ending though, I managed to stitch him up good as new. I used to enjoy tickling my pickle in the shower with a rubber on, and once I left the used rubber behind and my mum found it. Awkward conversation after when I had to explain that I didn't even have a girl over. When I was a kid, like 5, I went through a phase where I'd convinced myself I was the only real person in the world and that my parents, teachers, and friends were all just constructs in my own world that I created. I remember saying stuff to my mum and teacher along the lines of, "You can't do anything to me that I don't want you to do. I made you." I remember thinking at the time that it was strange that I would choose to have one of my constructs punish me. I decided that I was doing it because life would get boring if it was too easy. I eventually got over all this. I caught my 1-year-old with something in her mouth. By the time I said to her, "What do you have?" she'd crunched on it a few times and then spit it out. I went over to investigate and was horrified to see that she'd spit out a lizard head. A fricking lizard head in her mouth. Ugh. I guess the cats brought it in and ate the rest of it. She just happened to find the head before I saw. Nasty. Not a parent, but when I was helping my 9 years younger sister clean her room, I found a pouch where she was storing dead flies. Not my kids, but me. I dumped all of my mum's medicine in the car vents. When my mum saw me with empty medicine bottles, she freaked out and took me to the hospital, assuming I ate them all. My brother shot me with a bow. He also tried to stab me several times, succeeding on many of them. To be fair, I did tie him to cinder blocks and throw him in the pool, also hanged him upside down from a tree, buried him alive in a plywood coffin for a bit. He smacked my legs with a baseball bat for that one. Good times, good times. Are you and your brother Wednesday and Pugsley Adams by any chance? My grandma tells me a story about how my uncle threw himself down the stairs in the morning so he wouldn't have to go to school. Grandma took him to the hospital, got a cast on his arm, fed him, and then dropped him off at school. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.